Hello and welcome to another edition of Surrender Living. Today I have a very special guest who I have known all of my adult life. So because of that, I would like to turn it over right to her so that she can introduce herself and give herself a proper introduction here. Welcome, welcome, Heather D. Swain.
Hello there. Yes, my name is Heather D. Swain. I'm a professionally trained actor, but I consider myself an entertainer, and I consider myself a humor healthcare specialist. Now, it's important to know that I gave myself that title. No one gave it to me. I gave it to myself. And so over the years, I've taken my acting career and molded it into street performing, and then molded it again into what I call humor healthcare. So I have a show with a character called Dr. Antidote, and I help people with stress, depression, and fear using comedy as the healing device, and that's called humorhealthcare.com. I have a workshop called A Workshop for the Humor Impaired, which is like a focused 2 to 3 hours, depending on how much time you got, exercise for adults to remember how to bring humor and play into their lives. And then I also have another show called See It, Believe It, Report It, the Humor Healthcare Elder Abuse Awareness Show, the longest title in the world, but it gets everything out there. So, and aside from that, I have a bunch of, as you know, I have a bunch of bevy of other characters that I perform at street performing festivals and things like that.
Very cool, Heather. Thank you for that. I definitely couldn't have done you justice. And here at Surrender Living, what I'm trying to do is help with the world's largest mental health crisis. And what you've just told me is that you're doing that as well. So let's take it from the top. How did you become a humorist?
Well, because I could just out myself right here on your show. I believe humor is the highest coping skill we have on the planet.
Beautiful.
It is the highest coping skill. So the better the humorist, the more things that person had to cope with or deal with at a young age, and found humor to be the way. Humor was my way to get attention. Humor was my way to get people to look at me. I was the youngest child.
Me too.
Yes, I have a parental unit that was prescription drug addict and alcoholic for most of my life. And so those are, you try to find me a great comedian and I will show you that they were a child of an alcoholic. I have never found that not to be true, which means they are highly competent people and using humor to deal with their mental wellness process, right? So my humor came out of what I was going to say in my introduction. I make money off depression. I'm one of those people that, that's how I make a living.
That's so honest.
I know. I had done my first professional job after graduating from university, and met some very, very talented people in that show. And we had been collaboratively writing it. So we thought, well, we're funny, we should write something else. And so I said, well, we got together and I said, well, what are we going to write about? And we were like, I don't know. And I said, well, let's just go away for a week and we'll come back in a week. And the three of us will come back and, what happened in our week, what's going on. So we come back, we were like more apathetic than we were the week before. And what we all genuinely, honestly admitted to, well, I'm depressed. And I said, well, the strangest thing just happened to me on the bus getting to this meeting was I was very depressed, very depressed. And of course, the thing with depression is it takes on this mask of being personal. Only I am depressed. Only I am feeling this depression. No one in the world is as depressed as I was. And I had some like specifics, that made it, no, it's my depression. This, and I can't even tell you what those events were, but A, B, and C were happening. And therefore I was depressed and I was on a bus. And 2 seats ahead of me and no one in between was a young woman, my age, talking to her friend and verbatim said the A and the B and the C of what I thought my depression was. And I listened and I said, if there's 2 of us in the bus, and I'm in Toronto at that point, there's 10 of us within the block, there's 100 of us within this, and there's thousands of us in Toronto in this moment experiencing the same version of this is my depression.
And that
So
was probably at a time where it wasn't quite as known or identified as it is today, right?
have you read any of Edgar Allan Poe? People have been depressed for a very long time. Uh,
Yeah.
but yes, I think we have that illusion that no one's have it, but I'm pretty sure Socrates was very depressed. He just found a productive way to go through it. You know, what did he do? He
Yes,
talked about the human condition. Well, you don't talk about the human condition if you're happy. Why would you waste
right.
your time?
I heard this tweet or heard it. I guess I read this tweet and taking it back to what you're saying about childhood. It said, "Did you have a good childhood or are you funny?"
That's it.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
So
sort of
that's
has always stuck with me.
yeah. So the humor made me functional, and out of that meeting, as I said, I came back to that meeting, and I said, "We're all depressed, and this is what I think there's a market for this shit." And so we wrote a show called One Morning I Realized I Was Licking the Kitchen Floor, a comic look at depression. And that show launched me here to the Edmonton Fringe, launched my career. Out of that, my Dr. Antidote character came out of that. And now I make a living doing shows about stress, depression, and fear. And that's where it came from.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So, another little bucket that we're exploring at Surrender is sort of the home thing because we're spending so much time at home right now. I really like to hear from others about how they're negotiating that, and did you have to set up a different area, or did you bring in something new and interesting into your home to kind of do the work? And what kind of role does your environment play in getting you through 2020?
Well, let's just say, and I believe in the 2020 mantra. Look, I'm white and I'm female and I'm Canadian. So my journey is minuscule compared to most other people's. But if you're asking me on a level of mental wellness, I'm absolutely clear the fact that my privilege during this has caused me to have a much easier journey so that I'm in a major state of inconvenience is what I'm in. But it has always been very important to me that my home, where I live, is my home. I've been blessed, knock on plastic, because that's what's under the table here. I've always had beautiful apartments, and I am in my deluxe apartment in the sky right now. So I have a big open concept room with the kitchen, living room, dining room, and then 1/4 of that is my office, and then bedroom and bathroom and stuff like that back there. But so I have a big room that has 1, 2, 3, 4 windows and a balcony. So
Beautiful.
light is super important to me. So where I got lucky. I really think they should have told single people a couple months ahead of time, you should partner up because something's coming down the pike. That would have been like really good. And knock on wood, I think I'd be fine with the wrong partner right now. But the question is, how am I dealing here? I already had an office set up, and I just, my computer is on that. And as you're seeing, I'm checking out my angles today to make sure, is this my perfect little Zoom corner?
Right. Yeah.
And
I really like that.
but my roommate left. I did have a roommate, and she left in mid-July. So I've had the place to myself, which is a blessing and a curse, as we all know, right? It's the good and the bad and the ugly of that.
Yeah.
But I have a place to play. I have a place to play, right?
Right on. I think, that's very necessary. And artists always surround themselves with inspiration, and it sounds like you've got that going on there. So
I moved my furniture, though. I would say that was a big mental wellness thing. Both my roommate and I, like a month in, I don't know if she said it or I said it or whatever. One of us said, well, we can move the furniture, because we were still trying to figure out, how do we maintain our safe distance from each other, even though we're in the same home.
wow.
And
Yeah.
so we just played with the furniture, because again, I have a great place which is kind of lovely wooden floors, and you can just slide the furniture around really quickly. And but we did it because it created 2 sitting areas for us, right? So we both had a sitting area, and that was good. But the mental wellness we felt for at least a week of coming into the room and seeing the furniture in a different place was, I can't tell you how wonderful that was, and how grounding that was, and how different it was. And I could see, like, you know, is it time to move I had to get, when I got my holiday tree, as I call it, the big green thing in the corner, I got to move my furniture again. And that, again, was like, cool. So there are such little tiny things we can do for our mental wellness, like move your goddamn furniture. Because you know what, you have to vacuum, and that's good too. That's never a bad thing.
Yeah, sometimes a little slight shift in the exterior can really do stuff for our interior world. So that's great.
Yeah.
And how are you hustling these days? How are you finding creative and innovative ways to bring art into the world still? Because I think it's very necessary right now, but it's changed, right?
Yeah. It started out with, as all good artistic moments start out with, a whole lot of nothing. And artists don't stick in that for very long. So you're like, well, I did that already. Now I better do something. I did apply for a grant, of which I didn't get. And it was a grant to do some writing, and it was enough funding to fund me to write for 2 months. I think I'm on CERB, although they've telling me my numbers don't add up. So I don't know. I have to give some paperwork, and anyways, but I had CERB, and then I had a street performers gig for a few months. And so I went, that's the same amount of money, Heather. So just tell yourself you have writing money for 2 months. So I wrote for 2 months, and because I had the money and the focus, and I got up every day and I wrote, and I connected with a dear friend of ours, Wendy Vousden, who lives in Australia, who's never available because she's always touring. And she was my editor, and that got that going. And then after that finished, then I, you know, as soon as that window of I'm responsible and I'm writing stopped, I went into wasteland again, which I think is important to tell people. Like, wastelands, one, they exist, and two, you can't stay them for long, but don't think that all us fucking great creative people don't sit in wasteland.
Right.
Lesser time. And there's my phone. I'm going to turn it off because it's going to
No problem. No problem. While Heather is turning off her phone,
it's quick. It's not far away. It's
great. Good.
And then I got smart and contacted my performance coach, who I'd lost touch with over the years, and said, you know, I'm in trouble. What can we do? How can I work with you? And then she said, well, you need to do this. And it was called, you need to get a video calling card. And I swear to God, she made up the word right on, like, I don't think there's such a thing, but she made it up, and I believed her. And that inspired me to phone an artist who's a videographer, and I made these video calling cards, which I think you have and have access to. And that, creating that, is, then I had something to send out to everybody. And then I got excited about being online. And not to ramble too much, but at the very beginning of pandemic, a very good artist friend of ours who has a real day job, Michelle Kelly, who's Nito the Clown, called me up within the first week and said, how you doing? What's going on? I think you should be doing stuff online. My birthday's on the weekend. You're going to pop in and do the queen of rationalization. And that's just going to happen. And so that was in that first week, I went online and I was funny. And that's all I needed to know. I thought, okay, I can do this, right? I can do
right
that.
on.
So, you know, long rambling story, but all those pieces together. And now I have an online presence to launch and to step into, and I'm doing gigs and being paid online. And
right on. Very cool. Glad to hear it. And I think it's important for people to know that they can still hire artists. Like, you know,
it's so real time. I got to hang up the phone again because I did that poorly.
No problem. Yes, you can hire artists for commission work, and you know, so Heather's character can jump into sort of any corporate setting and bring some joy, bring the funny, and then, you know, team build a little and then hit the road, right? Like, that's so necessary to keep people's spirits up, and it's also easy to do on Zoom.
Yeah.
If you
And
just
it's
shut your
easy,
phone off, Heather.
it's easy to do it. Yes, exactly. It's easy to do it at a sliding scale too. So if, you know, your friend is having a birthday party and you've got X amount of dollars, I will come in for X amount of time for X amount of dollars. What I'm doing next week is a corporate company university meeting, monthly meeting, and I'm coming in as their mental wellness specialist. And so
Perfect.
that's a different product. That's a different amount of time. That's a different commitment. It's a different character, you know. So we are very adaptable to how much humor do you need and how much bucks do you got, you know?
Right on. Right on. Good stuff. And you have such a great outlook. And I found this little quote that actually made me think of you this morning. And it's by Viktor Frankl. And he says, "The one thing you can't take away from me is the way I choose to respond to what you do to me. The last of one's freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given circumstances." And our conversation yesterday just really, like, I feel like you've got this sort of nailed. And I really appreciated what you said about mental health. It's non-linear, right? Like, often when we give our stories, it's like we're good, we're bad, and then somehow we become good, and, you know, let's walk together being good. But actually, I would say it's a little more circular than that, or a little bit windier, more kinky. And yeah, you just sort of made me aware of that yesterday. So I really appreciate it. And I wanted to finish up by asking you, the last bucket is hope here that I'm trying to get at. So what is your COVID-19 gift?
The gift I've gotten from COVID-19? Well, we'll hope in a Buddha sense, you'll see the deep philosophicalness of this. But to be honest, the time was really important. How I used time, and that's again about choice, right? You choose how you use time. So when I got to stand still for that long, in the very beginning, my excuses came up quite quickly that were old excuses. Like, and I can look at something. There's a piece of paper on my floor right now. And I would say, "Oh yeah, I haven't got time for that. I'll pick it up later. I haven't got time for that. I'll pick it up later." Well, you know, the clutter in my bedroom. I haven't got time. I'm very busy. I haven't got time for that. I'll do it on the weekend. I'll do it in the weekend. And then the weekend I want to relax, whatever. So in this COVID thing, within the first month, I heard myself say, "I don't have time for that." And I did have time.
Right.
And I went and did the task. And of all the tasks that I had been telling myself I had to put off forever, took me either 5 seconds or 45 seconds to do. I timed them. So the hope was, for me, was time to reflect, which is what most of us, I think there's a reason the majority of us on the planet were told to stand still. So the time to stand still, the time to spend time with only me, and the time to realize it takes seconds to do the shit I've been putting off for a lifetime. And that can be health and mental growth. That can be exercise. That can be anything. It is an excuse I give myself that I do not have time to be well, because I do.
Love it. Love it. Very cool. Thanks for spending time with me today. I just loved you to death. And I love that you bring humor and, you know, free people from concern.
Yeah.
That's a pretty tall order these days.
And I think it's really important to know that it is about community that helps. You know, I could say I was having a good day when you called yesterday, but I also know if I wasn't having a good day and you called yesterday, I would have been happy that the engagement with another human being to talk even about mental wellness is a good thing, right? You can be in your own bubble, but you've got to be in community to do that. And yeah, and we are seriously, I hate that line, we're all in together, but we are. Fuck, I didn't.
I'm hearing it a lot.
Oh, but it's the truth and trust of that we are all in together. And I will leave it with, I believe I'm in part of the largest humanitarian effort ever consciously experienced on the planet at one time. So every time I get caught up in my own bullshit about my mask or blah, blah, you're like, Heather, oh yeah, I'm taking part in the largest humanitarian effort in the history of the world.
That's a really cool frame for it too, because I always call it a mental health crisis, but it is a humanitarian effort.
Yeah, but it's always, remember, it is never a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. It's always a breakthrough. You break down because you're not where you're supposed to be, and you're supposed to be somewhere else, and you have to break through to get there sometimes.
How can people find you, Heather?
I am, my website is www.humorhealthcare.com, spelled the British way, the Canadian way, and or the American way. So either one of those websites. So that's humorhealthcare.com.
Cool beans. Thank you so much for this. It's wonderful, and I know it's going to help a lot of people. So I want you to stay where you are. I'm going to turn off the recording, and then we can jam some more.
Okay, my friend.
Thanks, Heather D.